what do you think is the strongest part of your heads-up game?
I would say the strongest part of my heads-up game is probably bluff catching. Okay, when I play the style that I do, I allow my opponent to try to run me over. So I try to set him up for situations where he's going to bluff off his money when I got something good. Like in certain situations on the river, instead of betting top pair, I'll check it, and let my opponent bet value bet second pair. And that really confuses people, and it forces them to maybe be a little more cautious against me, and that gives me free cards. So it's like a cat and mouse game where you don't want to play too weak, because then if you do that, they're going to run you over for real. But you don't want to play too strong either, because you want to sort of set them up and mess with their head. It's like a back and forth kind of thing.
So how much do you have to open up your range of starting hands? I mean, obviously it's got to be huge, but where do you draw the line?
Honestly, your starting hands don't really matter that much. It's all situational. Having said that, I don't play like the absolute junk. Like I don't play 7-deuce offsuit and 8-3 offsuit. Jack, I would say the borderline for me is a hand like Jack 3 offsuit.
Because paint is pretty valuable in a heads-up match. Is that why?
Yeah, but I hate Jack 3. I don't know. In a Jack rag, if I'm on the button, I might want to play. But out of position, if I'm facing a raise, I wouldn't play that hand under any circumstances.
Let's say you flop a pair playing heads up. Do you assume that it's good, or how do you gauge your opponent?
Well, anytime you flop a pair on the flop, as long as the bet's not too big, you pretty much have to continue. And if you're not playing really that well heads up. Because if your opponent's going to be betting a lot of flops, so when you flop a pair, which is going to be rare, you should at least continue the turn, and then you reevaluate depending on your opponent. If he bets again, some players that means they have to have you beat. Other players, they might fire a second bullet as a bluff. So it really just depends. But you flop a pair, you got to see one more usually.
So how do you deal with a really aggressive opponent in heads-up play? If someone's just pounding away at you and you don't have any hands, is your only option to just keep laying your hands down?
Actually, it's really, I like playing against the really super aggressive players, and I played a lot of them recently online, and I just trap them. I basically, they raise, and I have kings in the big blind. I just smooth call, check call, check call, check call, and let them, and I try to represent like I'm on a draw and let them try to push me around. And then what that does, though, is it forces you to make some big calls. So sometimes you're going to be wrong. You're going to make a big call and look like an idiot. But like in this tournament a couple of years ago, I played against Greg Raymer, and I flopped middle pair, and I checked it, and he went all in on the river. And that's a tough call because I have middle pair. But based on the situation and what I know of him as a player, I made the big call and I won it on that play alone. Whereas if I put any aggression in at any point, he had nothing. He had like 10-6 off. So if I would have put any bets in, I wouldn't have won that money. So the key to what I do is set people up to try to steal pots from me, and then try to sniff it out, and then spring back at him with a call.
So what do you think is the biggest mistake people make during heads-up play?
I'd say probably the biggest mistake people make heads up is they overplay hands out of position. Hands like ace-jack, ace-10, ace-queen, if you have any chips at all and a button raises and you re-raise with those hands, if your opponent calls, you're just so dead in the water for the most part. Because you have ace-jack offsuit, and then the flop comes like queen 6-3, and now you bet the flop and the guy calls. Now what? You're just dead. So I would say that the key mistake that most people make is they don't respect the fact that when you're in position, that is power. That is maximizing profit.
Position is crucial.
When you're out of position, that's when you have to minimize your losses and just be like, okay, play like pardon the pun, like a little girl. You know what I'm saying, right?